Alright, BobalosRex here. And this is a lore rant about the Haranir and the world trees and more. And if you don't know, I'm in the Rift of Alm. Alright? With an N. I didn't say it right at first. So, if you don't know, this place, I'm actually in Haranir. I'm in Haranir right now. If you do the Emerald Nightmare before you kill Xavius, we now know this is Haranir. So, right out here, let's go look. Haranir, where are you at? They're out here. They're out there. Alright? They just don't want me to see them yet. Okay? But, let's go ahead, get in here. Let's talk about... Oh, that's spoiler. Oh, it didn't show up. So, let's pull this up. Let's talk about Haranir. So, I'm surprised some people aren't happy about these guys. I was super excited about these guys when they were announced. I was super excited when we met these guys in The War Within. Y'all know. And then as the patches progressed, I kept holding out hope. Maybe this next War Within patch. And I was pretty much had no hope, but in the back of my head, I was like, Midnight is about elves. I mean, y'all know my conspiracies about them being Quillbore, but at the end of the day, we had a couple of options. And we still got a couple of options, but we now got the Haranir with Midnight. Because it's the elf expansion. So, we're getting Haranir, and I'm super excited. Alright, but there is something I want to talk about right now. So, we still don't know if they're elves or trolls or what. So, but most likely it doesn't seem to be Quillbore. But what could the Haranir be? Let's start off real quick. So, could these be closer related to dark trolls? They could be. So, I doubt these are going to be dark trolls, what dark trolls would have initially looked like. They do seem like people want to say they're between the middle of dark trolls and night elves, but if you know how evolution and stuff, especially in the wild world, works, it's going to be a few things. So they could technically be dark trolls. I'm doubtful, but they could be direct descendants from dark trolls. So the thing with dark trolls is you have the dark trolls that go to hang out around the Well of Eternity, become the Night Elves. Dark trolls that went to go hang out in the Root Lands would have become the Haranir. You could have it like that, or you could have the dark trolls become the Night Elves, and then a group of Night Elves go to hang out in the Root Lands and become the Haranir. Then they would be related to Night Elves. But in my opinion, at the moment, they seem to be... I think they're an offshoot of Dark Trolls versus an offshoot of Night Elves. But it could be an offshoot of Night Elves. And them being an offshoot of Night Elves may play into a theory I have later. But that's where we stand. Either they're an offshoot of Dark Trolls, an offshoot of Night Elves. I don't think there's something other than those two things. They could be, but that's where I stand right now. So, we are getting the Haranir finally. They look great. I think they look great. And I want to show y'all, I'm going to be linking everything but the WoW Wiki pages. I will link maybe one of the WoW Wiki pages so you know like where to use it. But I'm going to be linking the next page, which talks about... I'm going to be linking this Haranir page, so we know Haranir, the Root Lands. We know that they're going to be able to join the Horde Alliance, and we get a look at their classes. So real quick with their classes, right? we see them be druids. You would think druids, hunters, monks, rogue, warrior, and shaman would probably be easy for them. But it is very interesting because if we don't see them similar to the earthen, you know how when we get earthen, they go to join, and then you see earthen dabbling in the other things, and then that's kind of how we get the other stuff for earthen. Are we going to see that with Haranir, or are we going to see pre-existing Haranir of these classes, right? What would a Haranir mage look like? What do Haranir priests, right? Because we are going to learn when we go into Harandar, right? Into this area, that the light is actually infecting it. I'm going to talk about that when we go over. We'll talk about the zone in a bit. Shaman, you can kind of see how they could get shaman, but freaking Haranir warlocks? Were they already practicing warlocks? Or did they just jump on the bandwagon? I feel like they're going to be jump on the wagon warlocks. But imagine a pre-existing Haranir warlock kind of order. That would be interesting. Alright. The classes we don't see, of course, Paladin. Alright. They ain't going to be learning to be Paladin yet? Question mark? And then Demon Hunter, of course, and Death Knight. No Haranir Death Knight. They ain't get got by death. Or maybe it's because they got too much life magic. But let's get into it. So there's this really cool page, Home of the Haranir, which basically, so I use this to do the research, right, for this video. And I'm going to go over most of these posts because I do got great little information in here. But it's also the source. So, say for midnight you only wanted to look up Amani stuff. Is there an Amani page? I don't know, but there's a Haranir page. So, all the midnight information for Haranir and all this stuff, all the sources, is right here. I am going to link this. Someone in the Discord, Bobcord, made this. Sil, I think this is great. This helped me do the research for this. Get it all collected, right? So, let's get into it. We're going to talk about Haranir, Harandar, and then we're going to get into theories and stuff. So, what's going on with the Haranir? We're going to get them as a an allied race, because we know Orwena. Alright? We also know what their racials are going to be. So, they're going to be able to summon roots. You know, more thematic of the roots. They're going to have innate bonus crit, so maybe they're extra good at critting. That's kind of like their deal. And then they're going to have plus damage to aberrations and elementals. Okay? Which I think is going to come into play with what we see them fighting. And then they're also going to have these root ray portals, which I think is going to be great. Okay? So, what do we know so far with Midnight? So, you can go through a lot of my sources, or a lot of the sources here if you want, because I've been collecting stuff of the lore here, but I'm going to kind of sum up a lot of this here. But let's have a good thing on screen here while I talk about the Haranir here. So, from what we've seen, what we are going to be doing, we're going to meet Orwena, right? So we're going to do the Midnight main campaign, do the Silver Moon stuff, and then from there, that's when we basically either choose, we go to Zulaman, which a lot of people want to do. I can't blame you. Zulaman's going to be great. Or you can go to Harandar. And what they've told us of how we get to Harandar and what stuff's going on is going to play off kind of what we've already learned in the War Within. So, what did we learn in the War Within? Well, there's Orwena, and there's the Elders, and their society is very secretive and about the roots, right? And we also get a very good look at Orwena and what her goddess is, because in a cutscene, we see her almost talking to the World Soul. It's a big ball of light. In my opinion, that indicates she's talking to the World Soul. So we know her goddess. And if the Elder's goddess and her goddess that she has a big connection to are the same, which it does seem to be, they're talking about the same god, that means their god, their goddess, is the World Soul Azeroth, who had a connection with them, which is very interesting, because let's talk about the root lands. Okay, so let's get a good shot of this zone. So what's in, here's the thing, this zone is, you know, this portal-y area. Like, you can see it in the, over there. We're in these pocket dimension of Azeroth that seems to have been created when Haranir planted a Luna here. Okay? Was this place always here before that? I don't think so, because it is wholly related to the roots, okay, of these world trees, okay? So what has me very interested in what this could mean for this zone, right? And I mean, look at this. So it's the confluence of all these world tree roots. So as each tree goes in, its roots go in and then tap into this pocket dimension that Aluna here created, right? That's, some of this is assumption, some of this is what we've seen, because this is what it appears to be. They've talked about it as a pocket dimension. People want to put it under something in Azeroth. That doesn't seem to be the case. The way you get something that's in but not under is pocket dimension. The pocket dimension is in Azeroth, but not in under anything, right? You see what I'm saying? So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about this theory now. What's interesting is this kind of reminds me of Ny'alotha. Think about it. All the old gods are connected, and talk about this collective place called Ny'alotha. Which, we've been to Ny'alotha. It wasn't under anything. It wasn't in Azeroth, but it was like a dimension of Azeroth. A layer of Azeroth that could be. And it's the old god layer. The Rootlands is... It does seem to be connected to the Emerald Dream as well as the Nightmare. With this Rift of Valn connection and some stuff we're going to get into later. But it's a connection between all these trees and this other layer. So I do find that very interesting, and that's why I think when the first tree was planted, that's when we get this realm, right? Though I do think the Emerald Dream side of Azeroth always existed. This piece of it, this realm of it, this Rootlands, was added. Alright? So, but that's what I think about that. And then there is something. So we're going to talk about what all the world trees later, but there is some I got here. How many world trees are connected, right? And how long does it take to connect, right? They did mention we are going to have to unlock some of these portals. Alright, and I've talked about this before, but Belameth. Is it connected to Belameth yet? Right? Belameth also already showing how much trees are connected to the World Soul of Azeroth, which is why it's interesting, in my opinion. So, Elune gives Haranir, this is the story. Elune gives Haranir a branch of the World Tree, Haranir. She puts that, which Haranir is a world tree of the Emerald Dream. Is it a world tree of the piece of the Emerald Dream that's connected to Azeroth, or is it... Because the Emerald Dream almost goes beyond Azeroth, in my opinion. But, let's connect it to Azeroth. So, this tree gets planted in, to Azeroth, right? Plants its roots, and then is ripped out, but the roots are already in, yada yada yada. But it's Elune to Haranir into Azeroth. So if you think Elune and life is poisonous, which some life, has gone too far, life magic, then this would be the interesting part. Like, did Elune trick Haranir to plant this? Did Aman'Thul know that the tree caused this new dimension to be inserted, and maybe that's why he had a problem with it? Because we will see where there is a part of this that is infected. Specifically the part I'm in the Rift of All. Yeah, how long does it take for a current world tree to connect? And, what is up with, you know what, I lost my train, so let's get back to this. So, there's one other thing. Actually, I'll come back to these questions. Let's talk more about the dream. So, we know the Emerald Dream is connected to Haranir, but Haranir is, it's connected to the dream. It's like in it, but it does feel like it's connected to other stuff better. And in one of the books with Malfurion, it's described as this, like... So let's think about... let's imagine the Emerald Dream and how we've described it. A primordial life version of Azeroth. Okay? So let's just imagine it as a sphere. There's a section of it that is this cratered out, rooted up area, right? And that was the Rift of Alm, and we are going to see that in Haranir. But there's also this root portal around it, and it's not wholly in the dream. So, like, there's this dream, but it's also a pocket dimension from the dream because it's also heavily connected to Azeroth, and there's this spot in it, this dream rift, the rift, and in the Rift of Alm. I don't know if they're the same, but they're probably near each other, where the veil between reality is thin. And that's where we get these undreamt... Here, I can pull up the raid thing. Here, we'll pull up the raid picture, because that talks about what's going on in the raid and these creatures. Because it is really odd, like, how this connects. Because this also connects to the Twisting Nether, right? Because the Rift of Alm has a connection to the Twisting Nether. Which, when we talked about last week, there is... The Twisting Nether, reality, and the Spirit Realm are all very close energy-wise. So maybe we can imagine this as... The veil between the primordial dreams and brutal reality is thin. Join the Shulka to hunt an undreamt god. And here's an interesting thing, because when I was getting into the research too, the primordial dream. Malfurion talks about it. I think it was a Malfurion quote that I was getting into that talked about it. How they say that the dream stems from this area. So, if that's true, right, we do actually, and there is some, like, story discrepancies that we're going to talk about here. So, if that's true, right, so we have Elune give Haranir a branch of Haranir to plant on Azeroth, right? Elune probably knew exactly what this was going to do. This was going to give it, Azeroth, a connection to the dream, right? Or, if this did create the dream, right? Elune knew that when Haranir planted this tree, right, which, it's hard to get a branch. I guess the dream had to exist beforehand, because the branch is said to be from Haranir. So that means you have to have Haranir in the dream. Interesting. Unless... No. I'm wondering, right? What if the branch, right, wasn't from Haranir? It is actually Haranir, right? She plants Haranir into Azeroth, right? But it's not Haranir. It's metaphysical, right? So she plants the tree. In the Emerald Dream, Haranir plants from that staff, right? In the dream, but in reality, it's a Luna here. I don't know how that fits, but either way, so Haranir tree gets planted into Azeroth, and then that creates the connection, the Emerald Dream connection that gives Azeroth that life, right? And then, like I said, if you are pro-Titan, if you're only for Order and you're like, whoa, that's too much life, then you can see why Amantul wanted to pull that out. But I think that connection was good, right? I think the life magic, because we see from that planting, and it's described, all the myriads of creatures and plants and stuff that grew out. So we needed some life to juice up the plant. Alright. And then, yeah, the Rift of Ulm is this veil between reality and the dream and nether. And the twisty nether. And it is going to be very interesting to actually see what this looks like beyond this mist, right? Because in Legion, we didn't get much, right? We got to see this rift, and then we do see how this rift leads directly. So, like, I'll kill him. Here, let me leave the rift. Bye, Haranir. I know you're out there. I'll see y'all next time. Here. Then we take him out, and then we are immediately, the Haranir are like, get out of here. Be gone. And then we are whisked away into the Emerald Dream. Our actual one of our first appearances in the dream. This is probably our first. And then we go back in Dragonflight and see more. And yeah. So we know Haranir is connected to this, but also not wholly this. Right? Because it is also heavily connected to Azeroth. Alright? Now, if you thought Nidos... Well, Nidos weren't really secretive. But they were... Because especially under Tyrande and Malfurion, they were secretive. Under Ashara, not so much. Alright? But the Haranir... And this is what's going to be great. But let's talk about the Haranir. So we're going to meet them through Orwena. So we met Orwena. She has this connection to the goddess, Azeroth. So she's going to lead us into Harandar. Okay? And I guess for tens of thousands of years, these elders in this society has kept itself secluded from the outside world. Alright? And Orwena's going to break that. And that's the funny part, because when it comes to, like, a secret civilization like that, it only has to get out once, right? So, the elders are going to be upset with Orwena, but there's no going back. And hopefully, with her showing, yo, the goddess is with me, the elders, which apparently have a weaker connection, because in a lot of the talks about it, they say the elders have lost their connection, or they have been losing their connection, but now Orwena has this great connection. So, Haranir society is going to meet the outside world, and we're immediately going to get them as an allied race. Hopefully, we don't have to wait too long. It's just doing their quest line. But it is a base expansion allied race like Earthen. That's cool. This is now the second race that have been cut off for so long now joining. But what's interesting, right? We got all the stories and lore and stuff with the Earthen, right? Remember doing the quest lines and getting the Earthen stuff? It does seem they're going to be doing something like this with the Haranir. This race is going to have some heavy lore dropping, right? I know for a fact, and here's the thing. Legends of the Haranir. Alright, let's pull this back up. The Legends of the Haranir event. Alright, let's bring it up. It's a good one. Oh wait, it was lower. So the Legends of the Haranir. Oh, it's right here. Legends of the Haranir. So what this is going to be about, it's described right here, is an event that happens in Haranir, and this is an event that invites players to step into the forgotten past of the Harati tribe, using magical paintings to embark on bite-sized lore-rich journeys. Lore-rich. This is designed for those devoted lore seekers. You can kind of chase right through these things and, you know, complete the objectives as quickly as possible if you want, but there's also a lot of opportunities for you to slow down a little bit, read a little bit of text about the past of these folks, discover some lore objects, poke around, and learn some history. So what's interesting about this is we now know that the Haranir have been observing the world through the roots of these world trees, right? Everyone's talking about Teldrassil, but that's going to be the deal, right? We've got this new Earthen Titan Keeper perspective with lore. We got this broker stuff in Shadowlands. I can't wait, right, to see a lot of these lore events. I wonder if this is gonna go back to... I don't think it's gonna go back to Black Empire stuff or the Titan Forge, but imagine if we could see 220,000 years ago, right? But even in the last 10,000 years, what were the Haranir doing during the War of the Ancients? What were the Haranir doing? They would have had a connection to Khazar. Do they know more than the Earthen about what went on there? Right? Will the Haranir have Earthen connection? Maybe some of the Freya-sworn were saved here. I keep harping on that, but whenever I thought about the Rootlands, I was hoping to see some Freya-sworn, but since we're in this pocket dimension, not so much. But what have the Haranir been doing, right? If they didn't help in the War of the Ancients, maybe they were doing something else. When the Nightmare was infecting and Malfurion was literally sent Xavius into the the rift. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Did Malfurion meet the Haranir? Right? There is a point where Malfurion is talking about the rift and goes into huge detail about the rift here. Right? Gazing into a Malfurion saw it as a bottomless chasm which radiates with primeval energies that even he dared not investigate. Indeed, the very rift itself seemed half-dreamed. If it had a surreal quality to its dream, Nyalotha, Dreaming City, there's so much linking this to the other side of that Nyalotha, which is very interesting to me too. And the Archdruid now, and it seemed to ripple as if ready to fade and change. And then there's an ancient evil in it. How do the Haranir feel about the old gods, right? Because when we first talked to the Haranir, Orwena had an issue with the Black Blood because of what the Nerubian were doing to it. But before then, they said that it was inert for so long. So they knew about it. So they have some knowledge about the old gods. And it's like, what is their opinion of the old gods, right? And then, like I was saying, right? So Malfurion, you know, with the Nightmare infecting it, he talks about, you know, shutting off this Rift of Aln. We don't need to go to the Rift of Aln. Is it because he knew about the Haranir and wanted to help keep them secret? Night elf to night elf to elf. Malfurion would have met the Haranir. Maybe an elder will have met Malfurion and was like, hey, I know a druid that was fine, and he kept our secret. I don't know. I think there could be a connection there because it's very interesting how he talks about it and whether or not they're going to connect this old lore and how that connects. Because we've been to one spot of Haranir. Right. So, also this page goes over the Delves, the Grudge Pit, and the Gulf of Memories. Both, it's so like, it's like this metaphysical like, I'm going to the Grudge Pit while I get out all my grudges. Going to the Gulf of Memory where I live through some of my memories. There's so much dreaming and memory. And even the Dream Rift talks about undreamt gods. And this is another thing. Is this the area where wild gods bubble up to and go free? Like, are they created here? And the Haranir, the fine and dandy ones go out into the dream and have a good time, but the like corrupted ones form here, and these are the ones that shouldn't have been dreamt up. And the Shulka, these monster hunters who break their oath to the goddess and then hunt her aberration dreams, her nightmares, basically. Now, there's a few more things I want to talk about. Let's keep on the trees real quick. So, I was looking at these trees. So, of course, Haranir, the mother tree. This is so freaking weird lore. So, here's the legend. According to the legend, the Titan Haranir was gifted a branch of Haranir by a loon. Gifted a branch of Haranir by a loon. Haranir was created at the dawn of the Ordering of Azeroth as the first thing Freya shaped. How was Haranir created at the time of the Ordering if a loon already had a branch to give Haranir? Right? This happens before this. Discrepancy. So the Titans gave us wrong information about Haranir, and now that's the question. What's the deal with Haranir? But we know Haranir is in the dream. We know Aviana has a big connection to it. So, I'm going to go ahead and adjust this. So, I don't think Freya planted the tree. I think Freya, Haranir, and a loon all have an understanding. And Freya may keep things from the other Titan Keepers, you know, or because we know how Odin is, we ordered it, that's when it's good. So maybe Freya discovered Haranir, said she ordered it, like, hey, I planted this tree. I did this, right? No, I did this, right? So don't go yanking this shit out, kind of dealio. So she discovers Haranir, this ancient tree, and is like, yo, I'm gonna protect it. Yeah, I planted it. Yeah, I connected the dream. Yeah, I did this. Right? Because we know that's what the Titan Keepers, that's what Odin would say to be said. Any attribution done to Azeroth is to be credited to the Titans, and he hits that, because is a thing truly a thing until it's ordered all nice and neat? So, I don't think she made it. Haranir was probably an ancient tree. Maybe it was an ancient tree on Azeroth before... Okay, crazy theory. I'm not even 100% on this. So, we know Ungoro had a tree. Because in the Emerald Nightmare that we go to, there's a tree on Ungoro, right? Now, the Nightmare... I guess it would have been... I guess it can't be Haranir. But what... Ragnaros killed a tree in Ungoro, right? Ragnaros took out a tree. So maybe these trees were on primordial Azeroth, and Haranir may have been central to Kalimdor and is, you know, then faded into the dream, or maybe just was so powerful. You know what? No, I think it's just the dream tree. I think Haranir is a tree of the realm of life. Maybe Elun's realm, right? Maybe the Emerald Dream is Elun's realm in her area, and that's why we see what it looks like. But so Haranir is this Emerald Dream tree for sure, because this happened before this. So the Freya stuff, I think, has been adjusted. That's my opinion, though. Let's talk about some of these other world trees, though. So we got Eluna here. The first one planted, now that we know. But also Nordrassil, right? They're probably going to have a portal to Nordrassil. Again, what were the Haranir doing during the Third War? What were they doing during the War of the Ancients? You know? Were they here watching Nordrassil get planted? Right? And being like, good. How much do the dragons know about the Haranir? Does Ysera know about the Haranir? Teldrassil. Ha! Because Teldrassil is a little sussy, because especially with who planted it. But, was it connected? What did they see? What was happening on their end? Andrassil and Voldrassil, another tree in Northrend. Will this play a big part in the next expansion? Maybe. But, again, all this bad stuff happening to it, it had to be broken. What were they doing? Dude, within the Emerald Dream, Andrassil still stands tall, even as the Emerald Nightmare corrupts the rest of the area. Interesting. That's cool as hell. See, this is what is interesting to me. So Andrassil in the Emerald Dream is still fine. But it, in reality, is broken. So that's what I'm saying. Like, is Eluna here still in the Emerald Dream? Yo! Eluna here may still be in the Emerald Dream. Teldrassil may still be in the Emerald Dream. That's interesting. Since that one's in the Emerald Dream. Okay, and then we got Shaladrassil. You know, this is actually one of the oldest trees. It says one of the first trees planted before the Sundering. So, Shaladrassil. Well, I guess Shaladrassil is probably the oldest, other than Eluna here. But I do wonder which other trees they're talking about. We got Amirdrassil, the newest tree. And then, yeah, they talk about the unnamed tree and the counterpart to Ungoro, which is interesting. And then there's mention of these great trees, which already... I didn't have it pulled up. So, there's a great tree in Crystal Song. There's these great trees in Ashenvale where the Emerald Dream portals are. Are we going to see those have their root connections? There's also some possible great trees that they talk about here. Tal'Daran in the Blackwall, Goloneth and Drusvar. Apparently, there is the Howling Oak. Well, that one ain't going to be it. But there's a couple other trees, which I do think is interesting. I'm excited to see which trees we got to unlock, which trees are already unlocked. I feel like Belemeth's going to be into this. Especially, right? Belemeth with... Or, not Belemeth, the tree's called Amirdrassil. If Malfurion knew about the Haranir, we have the Haranir have to do a thing to establish a connection to a Mirdrasil. My golden tree theory is looking good. Alright? Blood Elves, Void Elves, dealing in Nightborn, dealing with this stuff with the well. Right? Maybe some good, maybe some bad stuff happened to the well, but the well may need some help. You got the Haranir and the Night Elves coming in. Put a tree on it. Put a tree on it. Oh my god, the more I look at, and we know the Blood Elves had a tree. There's a tree called Thassalah. It was in the lore of the Hunter Bow. Shortly after the Highborn, what was this from? Tales of the Hunt. Yeah, Thassalah, Legacy of the Windrunners. So yeah, inside the Thassalah bow, the Illyria bow. That's what I was looking for. So Illyria bow. This is timely. That hat was made from a tree that was destroyed. Its roots now, dead home in the Ghostlands was built on the roots of Thassalah. I've said this before, those are 100% gonna be relative to this story. And now we can talk about the last thing that's gonna tie some of this together with the themes of the expansion. Okay? Now, inside the Haranir, right? So I talked about the Haranir, talked about the trees, right? I'm gonna link this source. I'm gonna link the Wowhead page, and I'm gonna link the great trees on WoW Wiki. So if you want to do your own research, come to your own conclusions about some of the stuff. You know, I'm summing up some stuff we know while also putting my spins on it. But one of the things, right? Do we have a picture of the blinding veil? I want to get to it. So, the one dungeon, right? So we have the delves that are like memories, grudges, and we have the dream rift, more about this dream connection, right? There's also this area, and I think this is part of it, called the blinding veil, where the light bloom, okay, is infecting. And I'm going to kind of quote some of what they said here. Blizzard. The light has gained a foothold, and it's not balanced. Alright? And it's going to be quite important to the story. Okay? So, this is some of that light is bad. What is the light bloom doing inside the Rootlands, Haranir? And what is this infection causing? Right? And if there's no Dawnwell, then it could be from the Sunwell, right? Which would be very interesting. And of course, they're saying it's very important. We only see one dungeon right now. And it's going to be very important. So either the very important stuff is us seeing light go bad, right? Or we're going to be going back to the Haranir and dealing with it in some way, right? It could be the second, where we go back here and deal with the light again, and more than just a dungeon. Or it's for those subtle hints of light doing bad stuff, and maybe we gotta fight the light. Now, I do have some final questions. I had here, who is the goddess? I feel like, because of the Orwena thing and stuff, I feel like that is set as Azeroth is their goddess. But where is Elune? Because Elune has the hugest connections to the Dream. And the Night Elves. But I don't see a connection here with the Haranir yet. Alright? So yeah, that's it. what tree, like, I know I titled this Haranir in the World Trees. I'm so excited for the Haranir. If you're not, that's a you thing. Elves are one of the most picked races in this game. I think thick elves, furry elves, Haranir are going to be equally as popular. I mean, look at them. Look at them. Alright? Um, we talked about Harandir and how we know it's this pocket dimension and it's connected to the dream, it's connected to Azeroth, and because of the Rift of Olm, we know it also has that reality thin veil to the Twisting Nether. And in my opinion, it shares a huge similarity to the idea of Nyalotha in the Old Gods, but the tree version of that. We're going to see Arwena and the Elders discuss, but we know how it's going to turn out because we get them as allied races, right? Okay? The Harati tribe is going to embrace the outside world, whether they like it or not. Like I said, once Arwena brings us in, there's no going back. Alright, so the Elders are going to get with the times. Are we going to see Malfurion having known about the Haranir to help keep the lore together with the previous books, in my opinion? Either he's just oblivious and they're very sneaky, or he knew. What trees are we going to quest for is one big question. Also, the Legends of the Haranir, I cannot say this enough. I think it's going to be great to see all these events through their eyes, and it's going to be the next archives, right? The Legends of the Haranir events, people are going to be doing them. If they're going to have like a week rotation and we're going to get different ones each week, the lore people every week are going to be like writing up, I found this and then this, and it's going to be changing our views of some things. And then, yeah, what's up with the light and where's the loon? Anyways, thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all next time. Shout out to Sil for this page. It helped me a ton. And I'll link it all. Thank you again. Bye-bye.